Hello, this is Hope Rosky with Weddings and Celebrations. Today I have a guest coming to us via Zoom, and it is Pastor Owen Williams. Pastor, welcome to our show.
How are you, Hope? So a pleasure to meet you. I
Oh,
enjoyed the last show, and I hope to have a good time with you as well.
I think this will be great. Pastor, one of the things about couples getting married is, they're planning a wedding and, getting ready, with a florist, a photographer. But one of the main things I think in regard to couples getting married and what sometimes does not always happen is the counseling beforehand. Are they on the same page? And I think no matter what religious affiliation one might be coming from, I believe that's a very important step is to know, are we on the same page? Um, and just your insights as a pastor, have you been able to counsel couples and prior to getting married? And if so, why? What is the importance of doing so?
Well, yeah, I have been. I've been pastoring for over 2 decades, and I have done numerous weddings and funerals and stuff. And you're absolutely right. I don't do weddings without premarital counseling. The standard rule is to have 3 sessions. Most times, after my first or second session, the couples end up doing about 6 sessions because in the counseling sessions, it's not just trying to form compatibility among the two individuals, but it's also for them to now do a deeper look inside of themselves in reference to bring their best selves to the the marriage itself.
And
I
I
like
think
you. Go
and
ahead.
and I think that's so pertinent. What is an average period of time? Because you may hear people say, "Well, we're working. We don't. We have busy schedules." What do you think is appropriate for a couple looking to get married to spend in a counseling type session?
Well, I try to keep it, no more than an hour for each session. Uh, we have 24 questions that we ask, and they're take-home questions, because we ask them to ask themselves these questions.
Right.
And they can range from, are there any physical ailments that you have that your spouse doesn't know that will come up in the marriage? How do you feel about shared bank accounts? Uh, Questions in reference to, you know, do you come from a broken home? Which one does from that process? How do you feel about your wife making more money than you there? How do you feel about kids? Uh, these kinds of things. So and the question is always trying to ask them those things. And then we ask them to have those conversations among themselves, you know. And then when they come back to the sessions, each one has to talk to me, not the other. And my methodology, solution focused pastoral counseling. So I engage in deep conversations with the spouses or the spouses to be directly in front of the other one so they can hear what their spouse is saying.
And I think you just said that so beautifully so they can hear what their future spouse is saying. Sometimes um, it's they're listening, but they may not be hearing it. And I think it's just so essential that the other person who is actually doing the hearing is able to truly have an understanding of what the other person's perception is. How do you work through when you have different perceptions and the two people want to become married and work as one? How do you work through those differences?
But one of the things is you have to let people understand and know that the statistics are not against them when they get married. They are blinded by the celebration. They are misled by the lies of other married couples who talk about how wonderful it is, and they're ashamed to talk about the problems they have in marriage, or their hidden hopes that never fulfill themselves from that process. So, what you always, just like I was saying before, communication is the key. You should never be afraid to express yourself in your marriage with your partner, but you don't have a right to express yourself without filtering out the venom, the animosity, the anger, the rage the bitterness from that process. Because when you do that, what you're saying is you're blaming the other person in your life for all of the ills that have transpired in your life, in a sense. So, you'll hear married people say, well, you always do this or you've always done that. And it's never really the case. No one always does something that people
Right.
have the ability to learn, right?
It
So,
just seems
but
to
that,
be maybe
go
more
ahead.
prevalent at times,
Yeah.
and these are things like you said, communication is the way to work through them, and work through them with a kind heart. I think sometimes people don't take an opportunity to take that step back and take a pause. And I think that, too, people of Christian faith or other Judeo Christian faiths may want time to pray on something before they use their tongue, because once it's out, sadly, there may be no going back. You can
Well,
ask
there was
for
a marriage
forgiveness,
coupling I
but
did, and they were young Christians, and she was more into the church, getting in church, and brought him in, and he found some time, so I had to speak to him more,
right.
lean on him more, and he believed in being a provider, which is a great quality, but being a provider kept him always away, and one of the misnomers is I don't want a provider at the expense of the time to feel like I'm the wife. I don't want to compete with a job. You know,
You know
that's
what? You,
just like
I
I don't
am
want to
very
compete with another
familiar with
woman,
this.
in a sense, in my marriage.
Right.
So, and
Exactly.
sometimes for men, that's a very hard concept to understand. But because they go back to, but you want this, and so the good thing is to have these conversations before they get married.
Okay, so let me ask you this. What if they are already married and now they're going through some of those things? It's like you're working too much and not spending enough time with me because you're so fixated on the finances. Is it too, uh, do you talk to couples during those times as well and try to work through this? And how do you go about doing this with couples that are already married?
Right. So now those counseling sessions, they go in. They're very deep, and we discuss a lot more than just their interpersonal skills and their marriage. So whatever you bring up in the counseling session is fair game to be spoken about. So if you bring up your finances, then we ask you to bring your finances in and bring in your bills. Let's look at that, and figure out what is a priority here for you. What do you, whoever the person is saying is I have, well, tell me what you can get rid of if it's so if you feel this is the biggest obstacle that's stopping you from spending an hour and a half, 2 hours a week with your mate coming home for dinner. What is the biggest obstacle there? And many times what I find is the
Absolutely.
behavior becomes addictive. You can learn to like being outside of the house. I'm married 35 years come December, 34 years December 1st.
Blessings to you. That's wonderful.
But it's not easy. And to this day, it's not easy.
Right.
So, you have to be mindful. My wife does most of the cooking, but I can cook as well. But I wash all dishes. It's not a rule that I do it, but I've trained myself to not watch my wife cook and then have to wash dishes. And that doesn't just
Right.
apply to dishes; it also applies to, you know, and it's not just in marriage. This is the four types of love that God has. It's doji, it's agape, it's philo. And it's a type of a love that I'm looking out for my fellow man. I can't see my fellow man walking down the street, know there's a pothole there, and let him step, break his leg.
Right, exactly,
Kind
exactly.
of
And
thing.
it's that partnership, it's that
Right.
collaboration, it's that working together. And I think so much for, like in the Christian faith, and even in the Judeo faith, is God is at the center.
Right.
And everybody's going to have different religious beliefs, and I'm not preaching one way or another. But when there is a center that ties a couple together and that they see the importance of that, then the rest becomes so much easier when they're able to work in that partnership. Pastor, there might be some couples out there that might want to be able to talk with you about getting that pre-counseling. How would they be able to reach you best?
Well, they can reach me at my email, which is owilliams owilliams193@gmail.com. That's owilliams193@gmail.com. Or they
That's
can go to
fabulous.
www.oewilliamsministries.com, and they'll see my profile and all the things that I do. My methodology is solution-focused pastoral counseling. I am a graduate of Liberty University in Lynchburg, Virginia. I have a master's degree in pastoral counseling, and I created a program called First Responders to Life.
I like that. I think that's great. I think that's fantastic. Well, I thank you so much for taking time to do this today, because there may be some people out there who are moving that direction and they haven't stopped to realize, between all the other wedding planning, hey, this is something that I really need to do before I make my way up to the altar. And for those people who have also been married, they may need to just do a check-in and say, hey, are we on the same page? What can we do to keep this moving forward and making it better? Finally, do you work with couples via Zoom? Can you do that because of the distance of where you are right now in Texas?
Well, right now, that's all I do right now is Zoom here.
Excellent.
I'll just put a plug in. Never, never, never not listen to someone named Hope.
It's a good one, Pastor. Well, I
Okay.
thank you. I really do thank you so much for being on the show today. And I hope I get the opportunity to chat with you again. This is
Without
Hope.
doubt, you have my information. Send me an
Yes.
email there and there, and whatever the thing is for the links of this one here, just let me know and we can take care of that as well.
Pastor Owen Williams, bless you. Thank you so much for being on the show. This is Hope Rosky with Weddings and Celebrations.